Thanks, X. Hey there, I'm Jenny Hoffman, and I lead creative strategy for North America. Now, as X mentioned, there has never been a better time to be in digital audio. The creative opportunity is truly limitless, and that's because streaming audio is audio that listens. So unlike radio, which is one voice speaking or shouting to an audience of many, we're able to speak to over 430 million audiences of one. And listening helps us create advertising that people actually want to listen to, that's relevant to them, and that adds value to their life. Now at Spotify, we combine 3 important factors to help brands create audio worth listening to. So first, our insights about the audience and the cultural shifts that are happening in the world. Now this is Spotify's secret sauce. We have a deep understanding of our audience. It's why our listeners are always saying, "My Spotify." And it's why we can deliver personalized experiences to each of our listeners, like Discover Weekly and Daily Mixes. It's also how we're able to create and reflect culture. So for example, we know that our Gen Z audience streams more Pride content than any other group, reflecting some of the cultural trends that Marian mentioned earlier. Or that during the pandemic, people created almost 3 million playlists related to plants and gardening. Guilty. Second, we have innovative ad formats, which includes things that don't look and feel like ads, like playlists or podcast host reads. At Spotify, hacking is part of our culture. We really believe in innovating and pushing the status quo. That's why we've created ad formats that have never existed before, like the call to action cards in podcasts that X mentioned earlier. And how we've managed to garner press for partners like EasyJet, where we created an experience that paired listeners with a destination and a playlist to match. And finally, third, personalized delivery. Because audio is a companion, it's with me in moments that other formats just simply can't be. So when I go for a walk, it's easier for me to listen to a workout playlist than it is to watch a workout video. Or when I'm driving, it's much safer for me to stream a podcast than it is to scroll on social media. Even sleeping, which is one of the #1 moments on Spotify, is a time for people to use audio. So we can reach people in the moments that matter to them, which means that your brand can too. Now, all of these factors together mean that the creative potential of digital audio is growing like never before. Audio is powerful, and it has never mattered more in the world of marketing and advertising than it does right now. As Caroline mentioned earlier, we're in this attention economy, which means that we're all competing for people's time. So if the biggest challenge is getting people to listen to you and your brand, then audio seems like a very natural solution. Now, I'll turn it over to Ty to share a few ways in which brands are creating innovative work across a variety of formats to inspire your next campaign.
Thanks, Jenny. Hey everyone, I'm Ty Comer, head of Spotify's creative development team. Each day, our in-house producers work with a variety of brands to create innovative custom audio ads that reach millions of music and podcast listeners across our platform. And I'm excited to share a couple of campaigns from this past year that really pushed creative boundaries and captured the imagination of their audiences. The first example comes from the United States Postal Service. Each day, thousands of postal workers deliver mail to our doorsteps through all kinds of conditions. You know, snow, rain, heat, not even the gloom of night can stop them. And some literally go the extra mile to serve their communities. So, in an effort to celebrate these unsung heroes and drive positive brand sentiment around the holidays, USPS asked us to share a series of stories that showcased how postal workers across the country go above and beyond after making their daily rounds. So how did this campaign come to life? Well, first, we worked with the brand to pinpoint a few overachieving employees with inspiring stories worth sharing. We then scripted a series of podcast mid-rolls and music ads that highlighted the different ways these essential workers profoundly impacted their communities. Then, to add a little star power to the mix, we tapped Jonathan Goldstein, the witty and endearing host of Spotify's acclaimed Heavyweight podcast, to be the voice behind the campaign. Not only is Jonathan an expert storyteller in his own right, but the connection to one of our most beloved podcast hosts helped bring a sense of familiarity and consistent sonic identity to the campaign. The result was a truly memorable series that reflected the spirit of generosity and goodwill during the holiday season and helped listeners see their local mail carriers in a new light. Take a listen.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Goldstein, host of the hit podcast Heavyweight. I may not get fan mail, but I am a fan of mail. Because each day, thousands of U.S. Postal Service workers deliver millions of pieces of mail across the country. And since every Postal Service worker has a story worth sharing, we've teamed up with the USPS to deliver a few of them to you. No postage necessary. You'll hear about people like Nancy, a letter carrier in California who calls herself one of Santa's special helpers, delivering last-minute packages on Christmas Eve. Or John, a USPS worker in Michigan who leads a team of volunteer elves responding to letters addressed to the North Pole on behalf of Santa Claus. Or Star, a mail carrier in Florida who's championed a national food drive, collecting donations along her route. Listen to these stories from the USPS mailbag at gimletmedia.com/USPS.
If you want to hear more, go to gimletmedia.com/USPS to check out all the spots from the campaign. Now, let's get a little crazy and talk about Trolli. The candy brand takes a unique approach to its campaigns. They're always sweet, lovingly creepy, and often involve day-glow gummy worms whose sole goal in life is to be eaten. They're definitely not your typical brand ambassadors, and the unique marketing approach meant that the creative behind the audio ads needed to be just as memorable and impactful. So, to help increase Trolli's awareness with candy-loving Gen Zs and millennials, we created an audio experience that brought the brand's eccentric and outlandish personality to life. For Trolli's podcast spots, we set the scene in a familiar locale, a supermarket. But this was not a typical trip down the grocery aisle. Using dramatic voiceover and unsettling background music, we created a snack run from hell that was only saved by the presence of Trolli's sour gummy worms glowing brightly in the candy section. To make sure the audience really took notice, we created the spots using immersive audio and sound effects that put the listener right in the middle of the experience. The result was a wild and unusual audio ad that perfectly complemented the brand's disruptive identity and deliciously dark sense of humor. Hear it for yourself.
The supermarket again. Aisle 10 feels like a dark, endless corridor. A corridor of the same old snacks. Pizza, bagels, chips, or more specifically, not worms, and not worms! When all you really want is truly sour gummy worms. And suddenly, from the candy section, a neon light in the darkness. Visit Trolli.com to choose which sour gummy worm you'll sacrifice to the overlords of your sweet tooth.
What's special about Spotify is that all of this great audio creative can be measured. Now, I'm going to pass the mic to Cheryl, who'll discuss how Spotify is investing in this space.